Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
You're listening to the sweet, sensual, and serendipitous sounds of Nerdery and Murdery.
Zig, damn it. Welcome to episode 102 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 102. I'm Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, the Nerd and the Murd. And Zig, I will let you take over with the nerdery side of the house.
This is going to be so much fun. Today, we're going to talk about the Fairchild Channel F. And we also want to give a big shout out to Jerry Lawson.
All right.
As well. Big shout out to Jerry Lawson. The Fairchild Channel F was short for Channel Fun. It's a video game console, the first to be based on a microprocessor and to use ROM cartridges. Instead of having games built in, it was released by Fairchild Camera and Instruments on November of 1976 across North America at a retail price of $169.95, which is the equivalent to $810 in 2021 money. It was launched as the Video Entertainment System, but when Atari released its VCS, or the Video Computer System, the next year, Fairchild rebranded their machine as Channel F. I believe they also called it F1 for a while keeping the Video Entertainment System descriptor on their packaging. The Fairchild Channel F achieved only about 350,000 units before Fairchild sold the technology to Zircon International in 1979, trailing well behind the VCS, or what became known as the 2600. The system was discontinued in 1983.
I don't remember this system at all.
I had one. First video game system I ever had.
Huh.
It was designed by Jerry Lawson. Gerald Anderson Lawson was an American electronic engineer. He is known for his work in designing the Fairchild Channel F video game console, as well as leading the team that pioneered the commercial video game cartridge. He was dubbed the father of the video game cartridge, according to Black Enterprises magazine in 1982. He eventually left Fairchild and founded the game company Videosoft. So in 1970, Jerry joined Fairchild Semiconductor in San Francisco as an applications engineer consultant within the sales division. While there, he created an early coin-operated arcade game called Demolition Derby in his garage. And it was among the earliest microprocessor-driven games. In the mid-1970s, Lawson was made chief hardware engineer and director of engineering and marketing for Fairchild's video game division. There, he led the development of a Fairchild Channel F console released in 1976. It's specifically designed to use swappable game cartridges based on technology licensed from Alpex. At the time, most game systems had the game programmed built into the hardware, so it could not be removed or changed. Think Pong consoles.
Mm-hmm.
When you first got the Pong consoles, there were a couple of different games you could play with them. Or like the original Odyssey, you could tape a little overlay on your TV screen and play that. But basically, you were essentially playing the same game with a little bit of difference in them. Lawson and his team refined and improved technology developed at Alpex that allowed games to be stored as software on removable ROM cartridges. These could be inserted and removed repeatedly from a console unit without any danger of electric shock. This would allow users to buy a library of games and provide a new revenue stream for the console manufacturer through sales of these games. The Channel F console featured a variety of controls, including a new 8-way joystick designed by Lawson and a pause button, which was the first on a home video game console. So they actually had the pause button before the NES.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Famicom in Japan. The Channel F was not successful commercially, but the cartridge approach was popularized by the Atari 2600, which was released in 1977 under the name Video Computer System, VCS. While he was with Fairchild, Jerry Lawson and Ron Jones were the sole black members of the Homebrew Computer Club, a group of early computer hobbyists that included several who became well-known, including Apple founder Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Lawson noted he had interviewed Wozniak for a position at Fairchild, but did not hire him. In 1980, Lawson left Fairchild and founded Videosoft, a video game development company that made software for the Atari 2600 in the early 1980s, as the 2600 displaced the Channel F as the top system in the market. Videosoft closed about 5 years later, and Lawson started to take on consulting work. At one point, he worked with Stevie Wonder to produce a wonder clock that would wake a child with the sound of a parent's voice, though it never made it to production. Lawson later collaborated with Stanford Mentor Program and was prepared to write a book on his career. Unfortunately, Jerry died in 2003 from complications from diabetes. The Los Angeles Unified School District named Elementary School Number 11 Gerald A. Lawson Academy of the Arts, Mathematics, and Sciences. A short documentary on Lawson and the development of his Fairchild F1 was produced by the czar of Black Hollywood director Bayer Mack and released as on Black Stars Music Television as part of Profiles of African American Success video series. He was also featured on the first episode of the Netflix limited series documentary High Score. They talk to his son and daughter, and when they first break out at Channel F for their children, his grandchildren, and plug it in and let them play it. The joystick that they had, it was a handle, and it was sort of triangular in shape. And on top of that handle, was the joystick controller, and it was a 8-way joystick. And there were buttons, I believe, on the top and on the where the pyramid or the triangle came to a point. There were buttons on the inside and then a button on the top. Really great joystick. I'm surprised that design didn't travel more than it did, because it was really, really incredible at the time. Now, most of the button controls for the game were actually on the console itself, like the pause and each one of those cartridges, I believe, had 4 different games on them, so you could go travel through them. I have listed the cartridges in some of our media as well as some of our YouTube page. They produced, I want to say, 21 of them. And they were basics like tennis, racing, very 1970s technology, but they were no worse than the 2600. And I would say some of those cartridges, because they were able to kick up the amount of processing power on the cartridges themselves when interfacing with the machine, were a little bit better than the 2600 toward the end of the run. I would say probably 5200. So not quite 8-bit, but a little bit more than the 4-bit that we had with the 2600. So the first episode of season 6 of Command Line Heroes, Jerry Lawson, the engineer who changed the game, covers his work on the Channel F. Lawson is also prominently featured in the second episode of the second season, Histories, The Toys That Built America, the birth of the video game, along with other pioneers of early video game industries, including Nolan Bushnell and Ralph Baer. University of Southern California's game program and Take-Two Interactive established the Gerald A. Lawson Fund in May of 2021 to support Black and Indigenous students enrolling in the university's programming, seeking careers in the video game industry. Microsoft also began contributing to the fund in August of 2021. The Google Doodle on December 1st, 2022, was dedicated to Lawson to celebrate what would have been his 82nd birthday, allowing the user to make games and modify existing inbuilt games on the Doodle itself. If they pop that Doodle up again, and I think there's a place you can go to see them, it's a lot of fun. You can check that out. You'll actually get some good pictures of the Fairchild Channel F as well. But more on the device itself. In 1974, Alpex Computer Corporation employees Wallace Kirshner and Lawrence Haskell developed a home video game prototype consisting of a base unit centered on an Intel 8080 processor and an interchangeable circuit board containing ROM chips that could be plugged into the base unit. The duo attempted to enter several television manufacturers in the system, but were unsuccessful. Next, they contacted a buyer at Fairchild, which sent engineer Jerry Lawson to evaluate the system. Lawson was impressed by the system and suggested Fairchild license the technology, which the company did in January 1976. Lawson worked with an industrial designer, Nick Talisifor, and mechanical engineer Ron Smith to turn the prototype into a variable project. Jerry Lawson replaced the 8080 with Fairchild's own F8 CPU, while Nick Talisifor and Ron Smith were responsible for adapting the prototype's complex keyboard controls into a single control stick, and encasing the ROM circuit boards into a plastic cartridge. What was great about those Channel F cartridges is they self-sealed. There's a hinge on the bottom of them. And again, you can go and see some of the pictures of them. So there's a hinge on the bottom of them that sort of opens and allows the cartridge to be inserted into the carrier. The Fairchild Channel F looks a lot like the TI 99 series of computers. The way the cartridge goes in, and I think that design was beautiful. And I kind of wish they'd have kept that sort of design, because it maximizes efficiency, especially with the hinge cartridges. Because as a lifelong fidgeter, I had several of these cartridges for a long time. I never broke the hinge.
Mm-hmm.
Just, click, 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 open and close and open, close and open, close it. So the ROM circuit boards in the plastic cartridge were reminiscent of 8-track tapes. Talsfor provided industrial design and Ron Smith provided mechanical engineering, collaborating on the stylish and function of the 8 Degrees of Freedom hand controller. And they were responsible for the design of the hand controllers, console, and video game cartridges. In addition to providing the ID for the system, Talsfor also art director Tom Kamfuji, the graphics designer who did the original design of early video game cartridge cartons. The system was also released in Japan in October of 1977. But Jerry Lawson moved on to form his own company, Videosoft, in 1980. Talsfor continued working on the system at Fairchild, and eventually a number of these improvements resulted in the improved System 2, which I have included a picture of. The major changes were that the controllers were now removable and using Atari joystick ports. So you could also plug an Atari joystick or a Sega Genesis or Master System controller into them because they use the same ports.
Mm-hmm.
And use them on a Channel F system too. It was about this time that Zircon International bought the rights to the Channel F and released the redesigned console as Channel F System 2. And they were able to sell it for a few years before its eventual demise. The F8 circuit was complex compared to the typical integrated circuit, especially the Intel 8080. It had more inputs and outputs than other contemporary chips, probably more similar to the Zilog, which really hadn't hit its stride yet, because the chip package was not initially available with enough pins. The F8 used the original form of the Channel F replacement System 2, was instead fabricated as a pair of chips that had to be used in conjunction to form the complete CPU. However, due to the F8's design, there was a considerable savings in terms of pins that enabled the inclusion of 64 bytes of internal scratch pad RAM. A single chip variant of the F8 was used in both the System 2 and the Video Brain computer system. Channel F is able to use one plane of graphics and one of 4 background colors per line, with 3 plot colors to choose from, red, green, and blue, that turned into white if the background is set to black. And as a result of 128 by 64 with approximately 102 by 58 pixels visible and help from 64 bytes of system RAM, which was half the amount of the later Atari 2600. But again, they were able to, in those RAM cartridges, kind of ramp some of that up to make it comparable and even surpass the Atari 2600 in some ways, graphics wise. The sound never got better than the Atari 2600 on the Channel F, but I mean, Atari wasn't even able to fix that. With the 7800, still had 2600 sound chips on it. So, now all previous machines prior to the Channel F required to have a human component, but Tic-Tac-Toe on Video Cart 1 had a feature of where you could play the computer. They were also the first to perfect that. And they called their cartridges channel carts, and each one of them had a numbering system. So you had Tic-Tac-Toe was number 1. I would say like golf was number 6. Or again, I've listed all of those out here. I may actually have a listing of them here. There were 27 cartridges termed video carts that were officially released to consumers in the United States during the ownership of Fairchild and Zircon. The first 21 of which were released by Fairchild, and again, the last 6 released by Zircon. They were as follows: hockey, tennis, which were both integrated. You could play both of those games on the machine without the carts. Video Cart 1 was Tic-Tac-Toe, Shooting Gallery, Doodle, and Quadradoodle. Video Cart 2 was Desert Fox and Shooting Gallery. Video Cart 3 was Video Blackjack. Video Cart 4 was Spitfire. Video Cart 5 was Space War. Video Cart 6 was Math Quiz. Video Cart 7 was Math Quiz 2. Video Cart 8 was Magic Numbers. Video Cart 9 was Drag Racer. Video Cart 10 was Maze, Jailbreak, Blind Man's Bluff, and Trailblazers. Video Cart 11 was Backgammon. Video Cart 12 was Baseball. Video Cart 13 was Robot War and Torpedo Alley. Video Cart 14 was Sonar Search. Video Cart 15 was Memory Match and Memory Match 2. Video Cart 16 was Dodge It, which was a platformer. Video Cart 17 was Pinball Challenge. Video Cart 18 was Hangman. Number 19 was Checkers. Number 20 was Video Whizball. Number 21 was Bowling. They released a chess one for 22. Electronic Partner or Werbeck's cassette. It was German release. Number 22 was Slot Machines. Number 23 was Galactic Space War. Number 24 was Pro Football. Number 25 was Casino Poker. Number 26 was Alien Invasion. Number 27 was Pac-Man. Yeah, that blew me away. I can't believe they had a Pac-Man. Kevin versus Tomatoes. Number 28 was Tetris. Timorous. And number 21 was the Arlasoft collection. Now, some of these were made by homebrewers later on. There was one called Demon Cart and Demon Cart 2, which had a whole bunch of different games on them. You could still get that. There is an active community of Channel F players and modders out there, just like there are for Atari and everything else. This group is a little smaller because, again, they only sold 350,000 of these things. It wasn't like the PlayStation 2, which sold, what was it, 21 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or no, it was 120 million. 120 million PlayStation 2s were sold. It's amazing. But yeah, this thing was great. The reason I know about it is because I went to a garage sale in, I want to say like 1979. And this thing was just sitting there. And I was thinking, because I'd seen an Atari in like a sale paper, like a Sears catalog. And I was like, this looks really cool. And it was for like $5. They're like, oh yeah, we just got an Atari. We don't need this one anymore. And I took it home and I hooked it up to my television and I started playing it. And my old man was like, oh, that's cool. And it came with 5 or 6 carts. And I played through all of them. I played the couple of games that we had that didn't require the carts because there were games on the system itself. I played it until I wore the controls out. And this was not a channel. This was not a system 2. This was a system 1, which means that when I got it, it had been released. It was an early serial number 2. So I think it was released in either 76 or 77. So it was 5 years old when I got it. 78, 79, 80. So 3 or 4 years when I got it, depending on, when it was released. And I played the crap out of that thing. It wasn't until the controllers broke and we found out we couldn't replace them that we went and got an Atari 2600, because me and the old man played them in my room every day.
Mm-hmm.
We'd play together. It was a lot of fun. I think it's a shame it didn't go any further, but it may be because Fairchild wasn't a large electronics company. It wasn't Sony or Atari even, or, Sega, any of those systems that were producing things at the time, Nintendo. It was very, very small, and they were mostly doing camera stuff. They just had a tiny little video game division run by Jerry Lawson. But that's about it for the Fairchild Channel F. I have included videos of not only what it looks like, but playthrough screens, as well as some of the documentaries about Jerry Lawson and how he basically took this idea that this one guy had this idea of how to do this thing, and this other guy kind of designed it this way, but it was real techy and hard to use. Jerry Lawson looked at it and went, no, this shouldn't be hard to use. We can have this in everybody's house. We just have to do it this way. And basically figured out how to do it before anybody else. And it's a testament to how smart that dude really was. And that was his thing. He liked to do stuff in his garage. Of course, he also lived in, Northern California where the weather's nice, so you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't develop computers in your garage here.
No. Because
it's 100 degrees outside all the time. But yeah, Jerry Lawson developed this thing and it was amazing. And like I said, I played the crap out of mine. I played it until it broke.
Mm-hmm.
And it was well loved when I got it. So I want to say I played it for a couple of years because when we got an Atari 2600, it wasn't a 6-button. It was a 4-button. It was already called the 2600. So I'm thinking we probably got ours at 81. So yeah, if I got this in 79, 80, I probably played this for about a year and a half, 2 years after it being, several years old, and it just played the crap out of it.
It's cool.
Yeah. Like every day.
Right.
But yeah, that's about it for the Fairchild Channel F. If you guys can find one, get out there and play it. I know there's some places where you can play game emulations as well. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, if next time I go to the video game museum, I'll have to check to see if they have a Fairchild because I was just not familiar with this one at all. So yeah. That's interesting. Thanks for a trip down another memory lane of video games, video game history. With that, I guess we'll turn over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, Crime Museum, Murderpedia, and Texas Monthly, and this is the story of Kenneth McDuff. Kenneth
McDuff.
So Kenneth Allen McDuff was an American serial killer. He was convicted in 1966 of murdering 16-year-old Edna Sullivan, her boyfriend, 17-year-old Robert Brand, and Brand's cousin, 15-year-old Mark Dunham, who was visiting from California. They were all strangers whom McDuff abducted after noticing Sullivan, and McDuff repeatedly raped her before breaking her neck with a broomstick.
Good God.
McDuff was given 3 death sentences that were reduced to life imprisonment, consequently to the 1972 U.S. Supreme Court ruling Furman versus Georgia. He would be paroled in 1989 and went on to kill again. He was executed in 1998 and is suspected to have been responsible for many other killings. Kenneth Allen McDuff was born at 201 Linden Street in the central Texas town of Rosebud, the 5th of 6 children born to John Allen J.A. and Addie McDuff. His father ran a successful concrete business during the Texas construction boom of the 1960s. McDuff was indulged by his family, particularly his mother Addie, nicknamed the pistol-packing mama because she threatened a school bus driver with a gun after the driver kicked McDuff's older brother Lonnie off the bus.
Holy crap.
At Rosebud High School, McDuff earned the reputation of being a bully. With an IQ of 92, Kenneth was not the brightest guy in the class. And he liked to call attention to his negative impulses. Classmate remembered when he scored a 0 on a test, Kenneth would make everyone in class knew about it, make some kind of joke just to let everyone know he did it on purpose and didn't give a damn. What this classmate remembers most is McDuff's maniacal laughter, usually at something no one else thought was funny, and how in an instant, like turning a light on and off, the laugh would dissolve into a glare so hard and cold it stopped conversation. He was careful to pick on weaker individuals after the large but not strong McDuff lost a fight he had picked with an athletic and popular boy named Tommy Salmons. As a result, he quit school and worked for his father's business doing manual labor. McDuff would often brag in later interviews that old ladies loved the way he mowed their lawn, making others jealous. And McDuff was convicted of a series of burglaries and put in prison. McDuff's criminal history began 2 years before his first murder conviction, where in 1964, at the age of 18, McDuff was convicted of 12 counts of burglary and attempted burglary in 3 Texas counties, Bell, counties, Bell, Milam, and Falls, and he was sentenced to 12 four-year prison terms to be served concurrently, but he made parole in December of 1965.
Huh.
McDuff briefly returned to prison after becoming involved in a fight, but was soon released. While he had not been convicted of any murders at the time, his accomplice in the 1966 triple murder, Roy Dale Green, said that McDuff bragged openly about his criminal record and claimed to have raped and killed 2 young women. On August 6, 1966, McDuff and Green, whom he had met around a month earlier through a mutual acquaintance, spent the day pouring concrete for McDuff's father. Green was 2 years younger than Kenneth and was mesmerized by McDuff's tales and sometimes exhibitions of sadistic sex. One of McDuff's more brutal amusements, which he demonstrated once in a bedroom of Green's mother's home, was pinning a girl to the floor and squirting a tube of deep heat into her vagina. Kenneth bragged that he had raped and strangled several women in this time. He told Green, "Killing a woman's like killing a chicken. They both squawk." Green wasn't certain that he believed McDuff until the evening of August 6, 1966. They then drove around as McDuff said he was looking for a girl. At 10 p.m., Robert Brand and his girlfriend, Edna Louise Sullivan, and Brand's 15-year-old cousin, Mark Dunham, were standing beside their parked car in a baseball field in Everman, Texas. While cruising around, McDuff noticed Sullivan had parked around 150 yards away from the soon-to-be victims. He threatened the trio with his .38 Colt revolver and ordered them to get into the trunk of his car. And with Green following in McDuff's car, McDuff drove the victims' Ford along a highway and then onto a field where he ordered Sullivan out of the trunk of the Ford and instructed Green to put her in the trunk of the Dodge Coronet. At this point, according to Green's statement, McDuff said he would have to knock him off. He proceeded to fire 6 shots into the trunk of the Ford, despite Dunham and Brand's pleas not to, and McDuff then instructed Green to wipe the fingerprints off the Ford. After driving to another location, McDuff and Green, the latter allegedly under duress, raped Sullivan, and after she was raped repeatedly, McDuff asked Green for something with which to strangle her, and Green gave him his belt. However, in the end, McDuff opted to use a 3-foot-long piece of broomstick from his car. He choked Sullivan, and then Green and he dumped her body in some bushes. They then purchased Coca-Cola from a Hillsboro gas station before driving to Green's house to spend the night. The following day, McDuff buried his revolver beside Green's garage, and their mutual acquaintance Richard Boyd allowed McDuff to wash his car at his house. The next day, Green confessed to Boyd's parents, who told Green's mother, who convinced him to turn himself in, and McDuff was arrested by Falls County Sheriff Brady Pamplin and the Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas Parnell McNair Sr. McDuff received a death sentence in the Texas electric chair, and Green received a 25-year sentence and was released in 1979. McDuff's death sentence was commuted to a life sentence, and he hired a lawyer who amassed a dossier of various evidence and claimed to show that Green was the real killer. Some members of the parole board were impressed by the dossier, and during a one-on-one interview with a board member, McDuff offered him a bribe to secure a favorable decision on the parole application. He was given a 2-year sentence for trying to bribe the official. It proved meaningless as board members thought McDuff could still contribute to society and decided to grant him parole, and he was released in 1989.
Good God.
McDuff was one of 20 former death row inmates and 127 murderers that were to be paroled. After being released, he got a job at a gas station, make $4 an hour while taking a class at Texas State Technical College in Waco. Starting then and in the months that followed, several Waco area prostitutes were reported missing, a fact that didn't appear to alarm Waco police or prompt them to ask hard questions of McDuff. Within 3 days of his release, he's widely believed to have begun killing again. The body of 29-year-old Serafina Parker was discovered on October 14, 1989 in Temple, which is a town 48 miles south of Waco along the I-35 corridor, but McDuff was not charged with this crime. However, he was soon returned to prison on a parole violation for making death threats to an African-American youth in Rosebud. Addie McDuff paid $1,500 plus an additional $700 for expenses to 2 Huntsville attorneys in return for their evaluating their son's prospect of release, and on December 18, 1990, McDuff was again released from prison. On the night of October 10, 1991, he picked up a prostitute named Brenda Thompson in Waco. He tied her up, but then stopped his truck about 50 feet from a police checkpoint. When a policeman walked towards McDuff's vehicles, Thompson repeatedly kicked at the windshield of McDuff's truck, cracking it several times. McDuff accelerated very quickly and drove at the officers, and according to a statement filed by the officers later, 3 of them had to jump to avoid being hit. The policeman gave chase, but McDuff eluded them by turning off his lights and traveling the wrong way down one-way streets. And ultimately, he parked his truck in a wooded area near U.S. Route 84 and tortured Thompson to death. Her body would not be discovered until 1998.
Oh, crap.
5 days later, on October 15, 1991, McDuff and a 17-year-old prostitute named Regina Deanne Moore were witnessed having an argument at a Waco motel. Shortly thereafter, the pair drove in McDuff's pickup truck to a remote area beside Texas State Highway 6 near Waco. McDuff tied her arms and legs with stockings before killing her. She had been missing from her home for 7 years by the time her body was discovered on September 29, 1998. McDuff is also believed to have murdered Cynthia Renee Gonzalez, 23, who was found dead in a creek bed near County Road 313 and heavily wood
in the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Heavily
The
wood.
only reason they found him in 98 was because of the drought.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
They
They found her 1 mile west on I-35 on September 21st, 1991, some 6 days after she was reported missing from Arlington.
Wow.
McDuff and an accomplice, Alva Hank Worley, murdered Colleen Reed, a Louisiana native, on December 29, 1991. McDuff and Worley drove to an Austin car wash and kidnapped Reed in plain sight of eyewitnesses before driving away. Worley admitted in an April 1992 interview with the Bell County Sheriff's Department that he had raped Reed and tortured her with cigarettes, but he stated he did not participate in her murder. McDuff's next victim was Valencina Joshua, a prostitute who was last seen alive knocking on McDuff's door. He strangled Joshua on February 24, 1992, and her body was discovered on March 15th at a golf course near their college. Next was Melissa Northrup, a 22-year-old store clerk at a Waco Quick Pack, which is the same store that McDuff had worked at one point, who was pregnant when she went missing from the store. On many occasions, McDuff mentioned wanting to rob the store and take Melissa. The kidnapper also took $250 from the cash register. McDuff was a suspect because he had been seen in the vicinity of the Quick Pack at the time of Northrup's disappearance. And during the investigation before the body was found, a college friend of McDuff's told police officers that he'd attempted to enlist his help in robbing the store. Northrup died on March 1st, 1992, and a fisherman found her body and floating in a gravel pit on April 26th. A major problem for investigators was that McDuff's post-release victims were spread out across several Texas counties. This made a single coordinated investigation difficult. However, the police learned that McDuff was peddling drugs and had an illegal firearm, both federal offenses. And consequently, on March 6, 1992, a local state attorney issued a warrant for his arrest. In April of 1992, Bell County investigators had brought in Worley for questioning on the basis that he was a known acquaintance of McDuff's, and Worley admitted to his involvement in the kidnapping of Reed. He was held in the Travis County Jail while police continued their search for McDuff.
Where the hell are the Rangers? We are the only state that has our own, basically, federal police force. Where the hell are these guys at this point?
Right. Well, by this time, McDuff had moved to Kansas City, Missouri, where he was working as a working at a refuse collection company and living under the assumed name of Richard Fowler. On May 1st, 1992, a co-worker of his named Gary Smithy watched the Fox television program America's Most Wanted. Smithy noticed how similar McDuff, who was featured on the program, was to his new co-worker. After discussing the matter with another co-worker, Smithy telephoned the Kansas City Police Department, which searched Fowler's name and found he had been arrested and fingerprinted for soliciting prostitutes. A comparison of the fingerprints taken from Fowler to those of McDuff showed they were the same. And on May 4th, 1992, a surveillance team of 6 officers arrested McDuff as he drove to a landfill south of Kansas City. He was pulled over during a garbage stop and became America's most wanted 208th successful capture. The arresting officers included Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas Parnell McNamara Jr., his brother, Deputy U.S. Marshal Mike McNamara, and Falls County Sheriff Larry Pamplin, whose fathers had arrested McDuff back in 1966.
Nice.
McDuff was indicted on 1 count of capital murder for Northwest murder in McLennan County, Texas on June 26, 1992. During the first trial involving the death of Northrup, he was rude and disruptive. He even tried to represent himself, but could never provide truthful accounts of the night the woman was killed, and he was found guilty. In Texas, juries determine whether or not an individual convicted of capital murder receives life imprisonment or the death penalty. And journalist Gary Cartwright expressed the hope that he would be executed, saying, quote, "If there has ever been a good argument for the death penalty, it's Kenneth McDuff." On February 18, 1993, the jury in a special punishment hearing opted to sentence him to death. Following a number of delays while appeals were heard, the Western District Court denied habeas corpus relief and rescheduled the execution date for November 17, 1998. As he was denied authorization for another, he gave up Reed's burial location a few weeks before his execution. Following his arrest, Texas began an overhaul to ensure that no other criminals like him were able to get out on parole. They changed the rules and improved the monitoring upon release. Collectively, these new rules in Texas became known as McDuff laws. The location of Regina Moore and Brenda Thompson's bodies were provided as his execution date neared. He was even taken out under tight security to provide the location of the remains of Colleen Hill. McDuff is buried in the Captain Joe Bird Cemetery, also known as Peckerwood Hill, in Huntsville, Texas. Mm-hmm. Prisoners are buried there whose family chose not to claim their remains. His headstone contains only the date of his execution, November 17, 1999, and X, meaning he was executed by the state of Texas, and his death row number. And his last meal, according to the death row chef Brian Price, was hamburger fashioned to resemble his request of a steak. And that is the story of Kenneth McDuff.
Well, what a piece of crap.
Yep, another piece of crap that I cover.
Well, thank you for that story, sir. That's amazing.
I don't cover the good guys.
Yeah. That's okay. You can cover this guy, and I'll cover Jerry Lawson.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That sounds good.
We'll swap every once in a while.
Well, we appreciate all of our listeners for joining in for another week of Nerdery and Murdery. As always, you can find our information on nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub where you can get all the information to everything we've just talked about, including links and pictures, as well as the link to our YouTube page. That's
right, and we have a playlist for every single episode that we do. You go there and look through those, and they'll give you bits and videos and information about what we're talking about for that week, as well as some videos that we make and some peeks behind the scenes.
Yeah, you do some very good work on that. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate you, sir.
You can also find the link to our merchandise where if you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdery fandom, please do consider going through our store there and purchasing some merchandise. That, along with our patrons, they do help us with our show. We have the link to our Patreon, where if you wish to become a patron and donate to our show, help us with our costs, keep us going each and every week. We do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the subject matter we discuss. So with that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.